Hi again, everyone. Today's song, Moonglow, and what I'm going to be covering is open voicings. Open voicings, all it means is if you take a chord like C major 7th, and you have got, they're stacked up thirds there. If you take one note out and move it someplace else, now we have some open space. So that means it's an open voicing. Now there's some formulas that you can use to create nice open voicings, but basically what you got to do is you have to put the bass note on the bottom, you play the melody note up top, and you make sure you have a third and a seventh, if it's that kind of chord. Sometimes you just have a major chord like that. But if it's a 4-note chord, like a major 7th chord, you have the melody note, the bass note, the melody note, and the 3rd and the 7th. And that'll give you a nice open voicing. So, let's take this song Moonglow and see what we can do with it. Well, straight away, we've got a chord that just says C, and there's no melody note yet. It's on the very first beat. So, generally on a jazz standard, when you just see a C, just the letter like B flat or C, it's either a major 6th chord or a major 7th chord. So let's try the major 7th chord, and I can really play any open voicing. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I could even do this. Put a lot of extra notes in there and make it nice and jazzy. That's a little bit more advanced, but that's what you can do. And generally, I try to avoid the melody note that's coming up. So I play a nice C major 7th chord, then start the melody. Okay, now the next one here is C minor, and you have to realize that the melody note is the major 7th. So this chord is a C minor, major 7th. That's the name of it, C minor major 7th. You're not going to see it that often, but it's an important chord. And how can we make this an open voicing? Well, we have the bass note, the melody note, we need a 3rd, and we already have the 7th there, so we don't really need anything else. We could just do this, but I'm going to go ahead and add the 5th. That's part of the chord too. And actually, I'm going to double the melody note just because I want to. Then next chord is G. I'll play a G major 6th, and I'll just do it like this. There's no melody note, and until, beat 3 or beat 2. Here the chord is A 7th, but our melody note is a 9, so we have to think very quickly that this is not just an A dominant 7th chord, but it's an A dominant 7th chord with a 9. And I've played the bass, the melody note, I've got a 3rd, I've got a 7th, and I doubled the 7th. Now why did I do that? Because I don't want to leave too much open space in my chords. If I do that, though, if I played a C major like this, it's okay, but in general, you're not going to play it that way. So you don't want to leave too much open space, especially up in the top part. Now between the bass note and the rest of the chord, that's okay. Now why didn't I put the 5th into this chord? Dominant 7th chords are not stable. They want to go somewhere. Like this chord wants to go to D or D minor. It doesn't go there in this song, but it wants to go somewhere. It has a lot of tension. And 5ths give the chord lots of stability. We don't want stability in a dominant 7th chord on a jazz tune. And by leaving out the 5th, it gives you the option of playing a flat 5 or a flat 13 and adding some of those nicer notes in there. Now the next chord says C, but I think it's better as an A minor, so I'll play an A minor 7th chord, then the melody, and here's D 7th. I've got the bass, the melody note, the 3rd and the 7th, and I did add a 9 to this chord. Next chord, G, it's G 6th. I'll just play a nice G6 chord here. I'll do it like that. flat back to G. I think more often it gets done like this. A G chord moving around a little bit with a D in the bass, and then you can do like a D flat seventh. That'll take you back to C major again. Okay. The bridge, G7, and the melody note's right on beat 1, so here we go. Now that's a pretty simple but good open voicing. And as you get better at these, you want to maybe, especially on dominant chords, start thinking about what else you could add to that chord. You could add a ninth. And we've got a whole bar with nothing to do here, so probably want to add something to that. Sometimes you can do a little reharmonization. You know, you're on G7, just go to a chord that sounds good right before G7. That would be D minor 7. So go G7, and then continue on with the melody. Okay? Or I could have done it like this. Do the same trick. See, I'm going to go down a fourth. This is a dominant chord, so if I go down a fourth, this is called the relative 2. Just go down, play a B minor, and then come back to E7. All right? That, you know, when you have 2 bars of E7 and nothing to do, sometimes you can put another chord in there. Or you could play a little run, something like that. The same thing. I went down a fourth to E, or up a fifth, played an E minor 7th, back to A.